Well, it's finally here. Election Day, Canada. It's your vote, your choice. Who will be Canada's next government? There's a lot of surprises, twists, and turns, and what has been called the Seinfeld election, the election about nothing. We'll find out who actually is the victor. With me is Brian Lilley, Sarah McIntyre, and Laurie Goldstein. So much happening, so much going on. Let's talk about, Sarah, you have been in war rooms, you have been on campaigns, you used to work for Prime Minister Harper. What is happening right now with the candidates?
Well, it's all about get out the vote. So everyone is making the calls. They're getting their voters to the polling stations. And really, it's about ground game right now. It's no more air war. No one's pushing any message anymore. It's all about let's make sure we can translate this support into actual votes. Because that, at the end of the day, is all that really matters.
We're going to get down into some of the more interesting notes of the campaign. But Brian, up until just less than 24 hours ago, all the pollsters have been out. All the numbers are out. It's showing such a close race.
It's a very close race. So whether you're looking at campaign research, who we've been working with the last few days, and they've got it 31-31-18. You look at DART, who we've also worked with, 33-29-18. Or people are putting it within a couple of points for the Conservatives or a couple of points for the Liberals or tied. Everyone's within the same margin of error. My take, and I put this in my column for today's paper, is that it's all going to come down to geography and who turns out. Depending on those two things, this is either going to be the very tight race we expect, or it actually could break wide open for either party. My guess is that if it's going to break wide open, it's more likely to break wide open for the Conservatives than the Liberals, but that's based on demographics and who actually votes, because the Liberals have lost some ground to the NDP with young voters, and we know that Conservatives tend to do better with older voters, and they show up.
There is a divide in this country. I'm from out west. I was just out visiting my parents in Saskatchewan. The notion on the ground is we got to throw the bums out. We got to get rid of the Liberals. If you go out east, Quebec separatism is on the rise. We're expecting the Bloc to do quite well in today's election. How do you sort of see this election compared to others in terms of that polarization of this country?
I think the Prime Minister is responsible for it. He goes into Quebec, I think Brian wrote about this in his column, and he tells voters there to stop Jason Kenney and stop Ford. So he's basically telling the people of Ontario, you've elected the wrong people, these are terrible people. It's just, to them, Alberta was a flyover state.
Yes.
We have two newspapers in Alberta, and we talked to them. And they told me, Laurie, you folks in the East, they say it with respect, you don't understand the anger, and even more than the anger, the despair out here. When Trudeau talks about 3,000 jobs or 9,000 jobs at SNC Lavalin, look, I don't want anybody to lose their job, right? I wish their managers were less corrupt than they are, and we wouldn't be dealing with this. But 9,000 jobs, okay. Out west, they look at that and go, do you know what's happening out here? Do you know what's happened to the oil industry, how we've been gutted? And to me, my biggest concern post this election is the national unity of the country.
And I think that's an important point, because whomever it is tonight, be it Andrew Scheer or Justin Trudeau as the Prime Minister, that I think is going to potentially be job one. Laurie calls it the flyover states. I hearken back to the presidential election. Hillary Clinton didn't go to Wisconsin and Michigan. She lost the presidential election. Sarah, Alberta has hurt. It's hurting. This is a province that is so important. And one of the things that consistently comes up is the pipeline development. But then we hear, and they say it, the Eastern bastards, you guys stop it. Quebec is not in favor of that. If it's Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister re-elected tonight, how do we navigate that to really bring back those jobs to the West?
Well, we won't. We are going to leave the resources in the ground, and we're going to be importing oil from Saudi Arabia continuously because Justin Trudeau is not committed to getting it done. He talks out of both sides of his mouth. He shells out $4.5 billion for a pipeline and then goes to Quebec and says, if you elect the Conservatives, there's going to be pipelines built. So I think Alberta, the national unity issue after this election, if it is a Liberal minority minority or a majority, I think is going to be a big one. I think between the Bloc, and then you've got Doug Ford, you've got Brian Pallister, you've got Scott Moe, and you've got Jason Kenney. And all that Trudeau has been relying on is stoking those fires to get those progressive votes in BC, in Ontario, and in Quebec.
Canadians never had an opportunity to really see these leaders. They never really had an opportunity to hear, or frankly, hold the current Prime Minister accountable
Not
for.
in English.
Well, not in English. Trudeau refused to participate in a couple of the debates, and so really it boiled down to the English one and the French language one, which no one watched except for the province of Quebec. How did he then manage to still cling on to this 31%? It's the natural vote, I suppose, for the Liberals. But this is a guy that started out as a rock star in 2015. He was the great hope. He was the next generation of leader. You know, climate change and millennials and legalization of marijuana. This constituency doesn't seem to be there for him in this election.
No, he did the classic mistake. He overpromised and he underdelivered. And also, remember, in 2015, things were going to be different. Sunny ways. Conservatives aren't the enemy. They're our neighbors. He said that on election night. But he's just another politician.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we've discovered. He'll say anything, and I'm not saying him only. But I've covered a lot of elections. I've covered a lot of leaders. He's just another leader. He'll do anything to win. Anything. It doesn't matter. National unity doesn't matter. Anything to win. And, I just, the other thing, a friend of mine said about one of the most smartest people I know in general. He said, I don't think Trudeau's evil. I think that he's lightweight. And that's even more dangerous.
This is a campaign, Sarah, that started with the Liberal media, the bus that the media was on for the Liberals, crashing into, as Brian always points out, rightfully, the left wing of the plane, of the Trudeau plane. And then we found out there was not one plane, but there were actually two planes. I want to get a sense from you, and then I want to ask Brian and Lauren the same thing. What was the most surprising thing that you found out during this 40-day writ?
Found out. I just the absolute blanketed bias of the media towards Trudeau was and has been just repugnantly obvious, and I think they did a huge disservice to Canadians and to voters because they weren't really asking about issues and where leaders stood. But I'll say this too. This is an important point when you bring up the two planes. If we do have a slim minority, we're not going to be wham bam back into an election. Everyone's going to be broke.
Okay, Brian, what was the big moment for you?
Blackface.
Yes.
I still remember, I was finishing up a column at home. I just filed and I thought, okay, I'm going to grab dinner. Do I want to cook at home? Do I want to, go out? Within 15 minutes as I'm making that decision, blackface broke. And I wrote and was on conference calls with you guys for the next 3 hours, talking about what are we going to do? Can you believe this? Is this true? How do we confirm it? And, and then over the coming days, he couldn't even say within the nearest 5 how many times he'd worn blackface. Look, I know that people say they want campaigns to be about issues. I've written about both issues and about scandal. People read the scandal stories more. So we can say we want it to be about policy, but at the end of the day, it does end up about being about scandal. And I think while there were some tough questions in the beginning, the media did drop the ball with Trudeau on blackface and other scandals because they are friendly to him.
What surprised you, Laurie?
Well, Singh, because he came in at such low expectations, is now looking like a winner. But to his credit, the night of blackface, Trudeau comes out, and it's all about him. I'm angry that I'm pissed off that I did this to myself.
We need to have a conversation about this. We need to learn.
Singh, to his credit, said the things that the Prime Minister should have said. He appealed to the children of racial minorities, and he said to them, and I liked what he said. He said, I know this is tough, but he said, don't give up on Canada. It's a good country, and don't give up on yourselves.
But I want to just sort of, in the last minutes we have left, give our viewers and our readers tomorrow a sense of what it is that they're going to wake up to I think we all pretty much agree, save for some extraordinary splits that happen in the 905, that it likely will be a minority government situation. There's a different situations, permutations, who could work with whom. How do you see this unfolding, Brian?
I don't see a scenario where the Liberals end up with the most seats, but I'm in the minority here.
Okay.
Based on who their voters are and where they are, I think they're more likely to show up at the polls. The NDP has been taking away the Liberal strength with younger voters. The Bloc is eating everyone's lunch in Quebec. BC is a disaster for the Liberals. They won 17 seats last time. They're going to be lucky to be in double digits. They're going to be in single digits this time. So it will, for a good chunk, once again, come down to the 905, but I don't think we'll know the winner until late due to British Columbia. But I'm guessing Conservative minority by about 10 seats.
Sarah?
Well, I think we're going to wake up tomorrow and, the electorate will have spoken, and they don't want to give the reins of power to any of these guys.
Yeah.
Or gals in Liz May's case. But, and I think that's kind of, where the country is, and it's split and it's divided, and it's going to rest, God help us all, with Julie Payette in the Governor General, and whatever there is convention, and then there is what is passable for public scrutiny to support. And the worst case scenario would be a Liberal minority that works hand in glove with either the NDP or a separatist party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would use numbers like 140 and 120. If Trudeau comes away with 140 or more seats, you need 170, right? He's close enough. The NDP will have enough. So yeah, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a Liberal Party driven, even more financially irresponsible. But do you remember what happened in I think it was 2008 when Dion and Layton and the BQ tried to do that?
That's right.
The public went berserk. When it comes to 24 Sussex and having power, things can change almost overnight when it comes to politics.
Absolutely. Well, it certainly will be different overnight. And go out, vote, have your voice heard. Log on to Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.